Hey, how's it going, everybody? I was thinking about how come I'm not more popular, and what I've realized is that it really just comes down to looks and personality. So, I'm hoping to be able to overcome those obstacles. Hi, my name is Dr. Asatar Bear. I'm a professor of economics and teacher of meditation, and we do this class every week. This is an introduction to heart rhythm meditation. And I'm pleased to introduce my collaborator, Leah Schaefer.
Hi.
so, so the purpose of the class is to introduce you to some meditation techniques. Hopefully you get some results and you feel the vibe that we create together. When we all sit and, bring our intention and, we're here trying to experience and really bring out our highest selves. And that's a big aspiration. So even if we can do a little bit of that, even if we can just be a little tiny bit more than, a little tiny bit more ourselves than we normally are, that's a huge win. Heart rhythm meditation is a method that comes out of Sufism, especially the Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan, sometimes called universal Sufism. This is a method. There's many different methods of meditation that come out of Sufism, that come out of, there's many kinds of meditation, period. And this one really focuses on the breath and really developing and perfecting the breath. So it's a very unique method. It takes some training. It takes some concentration to do. It's not the easiest method. I'm going to be honest with you. And the point of having a more difficult, more challenging method is that, I'll tell you this, if you get the breath down, you have an incredibly powerful tool in your arsenal, which will allow you to go through, meditation has a lot of highs and lows. You have a lot of moments of doubt. Am I doing this right? What am I doing, right? If you get the breath down, it's like you're driving a steamroller. Any bumps in the road, you're gonna just steamroll them. There's gonna be bumps in the road anyway, but I'll tell you, it's been incredibly valuable for me just to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It makes a huge difference. Being able to turn to your breath. It actually is. It gets kind of boring because you know how to fix yourself at any given moment. You're like, I want to stay in my bad mood today, actually.
we get kind of into our peaks and our bad moods or whatever, right? I mean, like we cling to that, like we cling to lots of different things.
Yeah, it can become part of your identity. So yeah, it is. It very much, like, that is a big part of coming into our hearts as well, is that it creates a major identity shift. You start to learn that you can change, and that you can change in any which direction that you want to, and you start to have palpable experiences of that. So if you are a fan of self-evolution, then you're in the right place. So.
Absolutely. And this in itself is a challenge, right? Because the more self-control one has, the more power one has over oneself, the fewer excuses there are, right? I mean,
yeah.
So that's a sort of a dizzying realization, right? And we're never saying this in order to blame anyone, right? I mean, like, that's not the vibe we're going for here, right? This is about self-realization, self-empowerment, not about, oh, you should do blah 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 right now.
Or you should be, or whatever.
Yeah, that's for you to say to you, never for us to say to you. I mean, like, we have too much respect for you all to should you, this, that, and the other, right? If you say that to yourself, okay, right? Then it's about, well, what are the tools that enable me to be who I feel I am, right? Who I really am, right? Well, let's start with a meditation. And right. Would you do the honors?
Yes.
Help us.
Yes. So I just realized I had my my Christmas tree lights on in the background.
Well, we need some Christmas spirit right now.
I never took my Christmas tree down this year.
Confession time.
I
People
just
think meditation teachers don't have problems, but that's just one.
It wasn't. It was a very conscious decision. Like this year, I was like, I need all the light I can get.
That makes a lot of sense.
So just to start everything off very vulnerably. Okay. So come into your posture. So I can't see you, so you can actually do whatever you want. But some part of me will know what you're doing. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So come into your seat, and I really like to just move a little bit right before I sit, just stretching my body out a little bit. And the main thing with your posture is that you want your bones to most easily stack up onto themselves, and that way you can relax your muscles as much as possible. And so there's lots of different ways to do that. One way is sitting in a chair. And sitting in a chair in which your hips are going to be slightly higher than your knees. Your hips being slightly higher than your knees is going to allow more access to deep breathing. There's going to be nothing that's crunching the abdomen in. The abdomen will be open. So go ahead and find your seat, and your pelvis, there's like the tiniest tilt forward with the pelvis. And what that does is it allows your vertebrae to stack up onto each other. So just kind of play with that a little bit. See if you can get your knees lower than your hips. And then see if you can just tilt your pelvis forward just slightly, and see if that can help you, as you tone your belly, help you stack your vertebrae. And you want to bring your shoulders up and back in the sense of allowing your collarbones to be broad, really allowing your heart to shine, to be seen. And when you first close your eyes, you might notice just a ton of stuff going on internally. That's all okay. No matter if your mind is protesting the entire time that you meditate, just know that the meditation is going to have an effect on you regardless. Even if the whole time your mind is saying things like naysaying or having doubt about your own ability to meditate, just know that this practice, every single moment of it, is going to accumulate in your system. And as you're ready, start to deepen your breathing. So deep belly breathing. And I like to imagine when I inhale that my breath is like a stream of water. It's coming into my body. And I'm doing my best to relax my muscles in my body so that I don't resist the inhalation. And especially just like water would fill up a glass from the bottom of the glass, moving up. That's how you want your inhalation to fill you with its source of new life, of new inspiration. As you exhale, much of the exhalation is going to be natural, and then you really squeeze your abdomen at the bottom of your exhalation to get all of the air out. And I like to imagine that my breath is reaching out in all directions, and the very bottom of my exhalation is reaching the furthest away from me, really expanding my atmosphere, my presence. And some days you'll find that your inhalation or your exhalation is more challenged than other days. With the inhalation, if you're having any trouble with that, just try to soften even more, almost letting your whole system melt, letting your whole system soften so that it might open. It's one of these things where you can't force the inhalation, but you can welcome it. And when do we welcome things? When we feel safe. When we feel like it's safe enough to allow our body to decompress just a little bit. And if today you're having a little bit of trouble with the exhalation, I want to encourage you to be brave. You have to have the faith that the next inhalation will come. And you have to have faith that when you give all of yourself toward that which you want to give yourself to, that new life will always come back and meet you. And I ask that you continue to breathe this way, deep, full breathing. And while you breathe that way, can you begin to really feel, really sense your own heart? Try to feel and sense your actual heartbeat. For those of you who this practice is new, or those of you who your heartbeat isn't really showing itself to you just yet, again, you really have to have that faith, that earnest faith, that you know that your heart is there. And maybe you just feel it once. Maybe you feel your heartbeat throughout your whole breathing cycle. Maybe you don't feel it at all. But keep focusing, keep concentrating. Hold your drishti, hold your focal point deep into the center of yourself, deep into your heart. Really trying to feel this pulsing, this echo, this drum that has been with you throughout your entire life. and will always be there during this lifetime. And then last not least, we're going to place an intention onto our heart itself. So this is kind of a twofold thing. You are placing a focus onto your heart, from which your heart will then echo that intention, that focus through your whole being, through your whole chakra system, through your whole body. But at the same time, I want you to listen as if it was this dance, this relationship between you and your heart. I want you to listen to your heart on what that intention really should be. What do you want? What brightens your life? What makes your heart light up? Or what turns you into a blazing fire, a beacon? What is your intention for this meditation, for this week, for this month, for this year? Whatever you like. And then as you take a few more breaths during this first practice together, concentrate that intention, that focus, right onto your heart, right onto your heartbeat. Entrusting your heart with it and fueling your heart with it all at once. All right. And then as you're ready, move your body. Thank your body for sitting and open up your eyes.
What a lovely meditation. It kind of takes me back, you all might not know, but Leah and I have been meditating together for some 10 years. And, there's a certain, it's like I listen to your voice and, it just kind of takes me there, you know,
Mm.
and
Mm.
I just feel this sensation of like how we just take our breath for granted all the time, right? That's what we do. We just
Yeah.
breathe. We don't necessarily pay attention to it. But when we really breathe, you know, um, what a what a coming alive that is.
Yeah.
I mean, it always just kind of floods me, you know, like it just feels like so much more, you know, and um, I feel alive in a much different way, you know, like,
Hmm.
so I hope you all are getting that, right? It's a
Yeah.
wonderful feeling.
Well,
Maybe you're focused on, you know, following the instructions and all that stuff. That's important, right? You know, what we're aiming for here is like, you know, when you're learning an instrument, right, it takes a lot of concentration, right? You have to, you know, you have to do the basics of that instrument, whatever it is, right? But once you learn it, then you play, right? You don't think about it, you just do it, right? You think about the feeling of the music, you get into the flow, right? And so that's what we're aiming for. Now, you know, is this going to happen instantaneously? I don't know, maybe, right? But you know, sometimes you know, you have to. It's like you have to work your scales. You know, you get the basics down, and then, but you know, maybe it happens right away. I hope so. You know?
well, and also it's very much that these basics become the foundation of everything else. Like if you don't know how to breathe, then you're not going to be able to move energy and direct energy through your body as you get more advanced and ability to feel things in a refined way. And I was feeling the same way, Asatara, like when I was just really focusing my intention on my heart, like deep into my heart, and then feeling the echo of that through the pulsations. I was really like, whoa, because I can
Mm.
feel the power in my heart, and I can feel how it even just that moment of saying like, this is what I want and this is what I'm focusing on, and then giving that deep into my heart. I was just like, that's the powerhouse right there. So
Yeah,
hopefully, yeah.
I'm also just feeling like, you know, just this theme about like how do we appreciate the gifts that we're given, right? And I think a lot of times the answer is no. We, or I'll just speak for myself, you know, like a lot of times I just take things for granted, you know, or I feel, you know, it's like I feel entitled, or you know, or then I get mad if it doesn't happen or whatever, you know, instead of being like,
Yes.
wow, you know, like look at what we're given, right? Every moment, it's incredible.
Yes, yeah. And it is very much like, even though Asatara and I have meditated for many years now, and gone through really deep meditation retreats and all of that, we are still human. Like I was angry all day today. So, like, and so like we don't want to ever make you think like you shouldn't be human, or that we shouldn't have these normal internal responses. And it is a very human thing for us to focus only on the negative, like our brain, apparently it helped us survive or something like that. So,
It's like the movie Elf, you know, Will Ferrell says, you know, I'm human. Well, I'm a human raised by elves, and then this little girl says, "Oh, that's cool. I'm a human raised by humans." You know, I mean, that's what we're saying. You know, I don't know what percentage elf Leah is. It's not insignificant, but the point is,
it's pretty high up there.
it's high. Yeah, let's be honest, it's high. But the point, we have an immortal spirit. You know, I mean, that's the thing that we overlook, right? Our spirit is eternal and perfect and unlimited. You know, that's the thing we so often overlook, right? So being able to appreciate, right, that who we are on this elemental level, right, on this fundamental level, is one of the things that we look for from meditation.
Mm.
Um, Now, I got an interesting question. You know, this is a common one. I just got this week about what about the problem of just dealing with racing thoughts during meditation? And you know, I got this question over direct message, which I'm very happy for. If you guys have questions, please feel free.
Yes.
You know, drop a comment here, or you find me on Twitter, or you can find Leah on Instagram. We put links in the description, and You know, if you're on Instagram, please, I urge you, follow Leah. You know, that's a good thing to do, even if you don't have a question. But
Thank you.
so this thing, you know, I had to ask a little more of a follow-up, right? Because there's a lot of different things that could cause racing thoughts, and it's not necessarily all bad, right? It's something to investigate and examine, right? So my kind of initial question is, what are the thoughts about? Is there a theme to the thoughts, you know? Um, and, you know, this is sort of an odd question to ask, I think, but, you know, it's like our thoughts are in a groove, and, you know, what's the groove, right? What is the thing that we keep returning to, you know?
Yeah.
And because we always want to go deeper, right? We're not expecting there to be no thoughts. Our minds generate thoughts. That's okay, right? That's good, in fact, right? We don't want our minds to be non-functional, you know? I mean, we have this incredible faculty. You know, we want it to function. But, you know, we want to understand, right, we see it as there's a feeling that gives rise to that thought, and we want to explore that. What is that feeling? And then there's a even deeper feeling, right? There's many different layers to this. And so, you know, with thoughts, it's always like dive deeper, you know?
Yeah.
Explore that fully, get into what's behind it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like what's the deeper feeling behind the thoughts that you can't stop having? So what's the emotion? And what can help you do that is very much coming into your heart and listening. And that can sometimes be a scary thing. Sometimes, yeah. So you have to, you know, trust your heart and trust yourself in order to do that, and really just start to listen, because things will start to come up for you about what exactly is that. And when you start to get answers, when the feelings start to come rising up, what's really helpful is the very deep breath. And the breath will help you process the emotions that come up, the emotions behind the thought. You know, it's like we have these deep grooves in our brains when a certain thought has repeated, especially if we've had these types of thoughts since we were children, you know.
Yeah.
We have these really, really deep grooves in our mind, you know, and so it's very easy to just like slip right into them. And so in order to create new pathways and new things, you really have to kind of create this identity shift in a way. And there are certain things where changing your perspective on something on a mental level is helpful, but there are other things like Asatar's talking about that really are much more ingrained from the deeper feeling behind them. And by tuning into that, by tapping into that with your heart, you'll be able to create those changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, I'll just say for me personally, you know, like one of the kind of themes from my early life was feeling, you know, that if I made too many demands, and if I was, yeah, like if I kind of asked for anything, you know, that those who love me would just abandon me, you know. And so it was like I don't think this is necessarily all that uncommon, you know. I mean, but whatever. This was my thing, and so for me, it was like there's a lot of unworthiness, you know, and this is like one of the themes that I dealt with, you know. So something good would happen, I wouldn't feel worthy of it, you know. Like this is, you know, like when I say what are the themes, you know, that's actually a big area of self-reflection, you know. What are my inner themes, you know? Like what is the what is the characteristic of my inner soundtrack, you know? What kind of music is it, right? That's the kind of question. And you know, we don't want to like do this mentally.
Myself? Yeah.
Wait, I missed that. Say it again.
Sorry, what story am I telling myself? Just another way to say the same thing.
Yeah, exactly, right. What is this story? What kind of story is it? You know, is it is it an adventure story? Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it action? So you know, I mean, I don't want to suggest that you do this entirely mentally, right? There is a part of it that's mental where you say, oh, I'm having thoughts. Interesting. Let me observe that, right? But it's also like use the breath, right? You have the thought, draw it in with your inhalation,
Mm.
draw it into your heart. You want to understand it. That's what's going to help, right? The core of yourself, your heart, right?
Mhm.
So we're not used to thinking about our hearts this way, right? We're used to thinking about our hearts as kind of untrustworthy, um, like, oh, we have these feelings and they change and we don't understand them very well and we don't trust them and all this stuff, right? So it's a kind of a philosophical shift to say, oh, the core of my feeling self, that is actually very trustworthy, um, that is how all the big decisions get made anyway, like, oh, we tell ourselves is up here, oh yes, I weighed the pros and cons. Bullshit, that's that's a comforting thing, right? Your mind likes that. Oh yes, I've thought it through, right?
Mhm.
Most of the big things you can't really think through because you don't have the data for it, like you don't know, you don't have enough information. um, should I fall in love with this person? I mean, like, it's ridiculous to think that you've calculated that, right? You have made a decision with your heart, right? That is you so what we're suggesting here is that you get in touch with that, right? If you don't get in touch with it, you're going to be under a big delusion, right?
Yeah.
um, and the delusion is like, oh, this is in charge, you know
Yeah.
um, so
Also,
this is on this theme. Obviously there's a lot to say about, like, how do you deal with thoughts, and what is the how do you work with this? I mean, you'll find your own way over time, right? That's another thing. But so one theme here is, what is the character, right? Using your breath to go deeper. um,
mm,
Another theme is, maybe your thoughts are racing because you're getting energy. You get energy from the breath, you get energy from being still, focusing your mind on your inner life, right? This fills you with energy and inspiration. That affects your thoughts. So if that's the reason, right, if your thoughts are inspired and free and creative, and right,
mm,
if it's a new kind
mm,
of music that you're hearing here, right,
mm.
that's very significant. Um, like, I
Ah.
would want you to appreciate that, and not be like, oh my God, my racing thoughts, I'm really failing at
It's like,
meditation. No.
ah.
You're having some inspired thoughts. That's good. Like, you wouldn't want to miss those.
No.
So I'm sort of like, I'm reacting a little bit to this notion. It's kind of in the, like, meditation discourse or whatever, that says thoughts are bad, and if you're having them, well, you know, you're not meditating. You just messed up, right? Like that.
Or you
Um,
could observe them, or
yeah,
like those are the mainstream kind of messages.
yeah, and it's not, it's there's more to it than that, right? There's, um, can you observe them? Yes, absolutely, right. But we want to do more than just observe, right? The thoughts are kind of like, it's like, listening to a couple of people talking or something like that, right? Um, we want to do more than just listen to a banal conversation, right? We want self-realization, we want self-knowledge, we want to be one with everything, right? So how do we get from that, right, okay, an ordinary conversation, to, you know state of unity?
Mm,
Tell
mm.
us, Leah, how do we do it?
Okay, this is how you do it. First, you come into your heart. So, woo. Sorry, I kicked my stand. That Asatar told me that when my stand moves, it makes a farting noise. I did not.
That was off screen only, Leah, damn it.
So bad. Oh God, I'm so flustered. So I just that was really well said, Asatar, and I wanted to add on to it because I've known a lot of people who are extraordinarily brilliant, and they have extraordinary brilliant minds, and also one of my closest friends is just like hypervigilant, like as hypervigilant as you can get, right? And that's probably why she likes me. Because I'm like, she's like, how do you operate? But she's seriously like, she like during COVID, she trained for a marathon, you know, by herself that no one else was doing, you know, like this is the type of person she is, right? So her mind does not stop. It does not stop. And it comes more, like, I'm sure that there are exactly what you were saying, that there are emotions behind it. And that there are feelings underneath of it, of course. But when it's that strong and when it's that prominent, you might fall into this kind of hypervigilant category. And so what I find is like people with hypervigilance, it really takes a lot of kind of doing for you to get a meditation practice down. Like you might be good to just do like a few minutes a day or something, like keeping it short just to get yourself to be able to do that. But what I really always think of is that it's energetically, if you think of your body as having a certain amount of energy, it's like most the energy of your body is up in your head. Okay. And if you think about it, you're trying to bring that energy that's up in your head down into your body. Okay. And it takes energy for that to happen. So what can be really helpful for someone like you is a technique called the square breath, which I'm not sure we'll go over it today, but eventually we'll cover that, or you can ask us in a DM or in a comment. But it's essentially where you're inhaling for 8 heartbeats, exhaling for 8 heartbeats, and then inhaling for 8 heartbeats, and then with the breath in, you hold your breath for 16 heartbeats, okay? And then you exhale for another 8. Inhale for 8, hold for 16, okay? So it's like kind of like a square. And what that does is it really gives you a ton of energy. It also calms anxiety. It takes a tremendous amount of focus, and it kind of eats up like that extra energy in a way. And in its own right, it kind of helps you digest all that extra energy, and that will help you ground into yourself and into your body.
Absolutely. That's so true. I mean, this is challenging practice, right? And a lot of times your mind needs that, right? Especially a certain kind of person, right? That who has that kind of very active, as you call it, hypervigilant, right, type of outlook. You need to give your mind something to do, I mean, like, your mind is like a dog that really wants to dig a hole. Let it dig a hole, like, all right. You got to give that dog something to do. And then you get a kind of liberation from that, right? Because, okay, your mind is focused on a practice which is really tuning up your breath, right? And this is what the square breath does, right? It builds your self-control. It builds your lung capacity even, because you have this challenge of, we call it the square breath because, it has 3 different parts to it, right? Inhalation, hold, exhalation, right? And these are all balanced, right? So inhalation and exhalation, same length, right? Breath in motion plus breath being held, right? Those are the same length as well, right? So inhalation and exhalation together are the same length as the hold is. That's a challenging pattern, right? That means when you're doing your breathing, you need to really focus on it. You need to focus on your exhalation so that you breathe out enough so that you can then breathe in enough to be able to do the hold. And if you're it's like a wheel that you're keeping rolling. And if you don't roll it at a certain speed, it starts to waver, it's going to fall over, right? That with this practice, if you don't put enough attention on it, it's going to start getting more and more difficult, right? And so that difficulty keeps you on track, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can't space out. If you do, you're like, oh, okay, now I got to get back on track.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, and usually people with a lot of hypervigilance love challenges too. So it's exactly that.
Well, now we have to do it, of course, because we've had all this
all this prep. Yeah.
We'll just say, just as a precursor or whatever, a disclaimer. It's a difficult, just challenging practice.
Yeah.
if you don't feel like you're able to do it, or you don't feel like maybe you do it a little bit, or you not don't feel like you master it, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
This is something we build up to, but one of the things about a class like this is we can take you through you know different things that maybe maybe you wouldn't necessarily do on your own, right? Because we're together, right? There's something in that, right? you know
Absolutely. It's like core work in a yoga class. The I also wanted to note, you said something really important, Asatar, about the ability to kind of liberate yourself from your mind. And I just want to repeat that, because a lot of what we're doing here is we're saying, like, you do not need to be a prisoner of your mind. You do not need to be a prisoner, like, of any obstacle or emotion. Like, if that is like some, or any story that's going on inside of you, any internal narrative, you are absolutely able to come into your heart and then find your breath and find ways to reorganize these patterns inside yourself, to coming more toward liberation and coming more toward just like that freedom of self-expression, who you are, like coming into who you really are and who you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, let's try this out then. The square breath, in a lot of ways, it brings together a lot of what we're doing with heart rhythm meditation, right? So we've really tried to emphasize in this class and in the previous ones, um, we're trying to perfect the breath, right? So make the breath deep, make the breath slow, make the breath rhythmic, make the breath heart centered, make the breath full. Um, Now, all of these are going to be required when you do the square breath, because um, it just brings it all together. And so it's a great exercise to do. I often use it. I don't use it for long meditations. I use it for tuning myself up, right? Maybe I'll do 10 of these. Maybe I'll do 30 of them. This is the kind of, and then I go back to the rhythmic breathing with no holding afterwards. And it's much more expanded, right? This is a
Yeah,
workout for your breathing mechanism.
totally.
So if it feels like work, good, it's work. I mean,
I avoid this practice. I'm glad you're making me do this.
yeah, I mean, it's a workout, right? that's
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Gotta get
So
ready.
don't like don't mistake that, right? Now, you might feel like it's not that relaxing. You might feel like it's not what you think of as meditation. Fine, right? But notice, right, we're gonna practice it, and then we're gonna release it, and we're just gonna go to rhythmic breathing. That's the moment that you could be aware of, right? Because when you release that tension and go back to just your regular rhythmic breathing practice, you might notice it's tremendously expanded. Um, all right, so let's try this out. So you start with your good upright posture again, and you take a few breaths and just prepare yourself. All right, so remember what we're working on now. We're working on making the breath deep, so that is breathing in and out, letting your belly expand as you breathe in. Now we're also working with a full breath, so your belly is going to expand and a lot of the breathing takes place there, but then you're going to continue it. You're going to expand your rib cage and all the way up to your clavicle. Breathing much more than you normally do. Now, to make this work, you have to make your breath slow. And you have to then work on the exhalation and breathe out much more forcefully. You're going to have to use your abdominal muscles and squeeze out all the breath as much as you can, so that you can then take a full inhalation. Now, if you did this quickly, you would probably get very lightheaded. So we're doing it slowly so that your body has time to absorb all of that oxygen, so that your blood carbon dioxide and oxygen balance is correct. Um, so slow rhythmic breathing, right? That's what we're starting with. Now, also tune into your heart. If you can feel your heartbeat, you bring your heartbeat into rhythm with your breath. If you can't feel your heartbeat, you just count in your mind to yourself, all right? Odds are that count is going to be very close to your heartbeat. Maybe it'll be dead on, I don't know. But there's a certain natural rhythm, even if you can't feel it at the moment. I can almost always feel my heartbeat, but there's certain times when I can't, like if I'm in some kind of vibrating vehicle or something like that, right? There's times where I can't feel it. There's too much, like in a car, it's going over a bumpy road or something like this, right? There's too much external sensation to feel it. Um, so, all right, I'll imagine it, right? Um, that's perfectly fine. But bring the focus and keep the focus on your heart, on the center of your being. Now, when you're ready, you take in your inhalation, and then you hold the breath. Now, it's a good idea to approach this slowly. So maybe you start by holding the breath, not for the whole period, but for less. So perhaps you're breathing out for 8 beats and then breathing in for 8 beats. Maybe try holding the breath for 8 beats. Maybe you just try holding it a little bit, see how that feels. So just introduce a period of holding. Now, very important, when that period of holding is over and it comes time to exhale, control the exhalation. Do not let it all just blurt out, right? Control it. So, when you release that tension, your breath wants to just go like this, right? Control it. Let it out in a controlled fashion. And then push that exhalation so that you get to the very bottom of it. Breathe out all the air. Then expand your belly, your lungs, your rib cage, all of it as you breathe in. Just challenge yourself with that pattern. The challenge is in maintaining it breath after breath. So you're just creeping up on it here. And when you're ready, then you try to extend that holding period so that it is double the length of your inhalation. It's also a good idea to back off a little bit. So if you normally breathe out for 8 and then in for 8 and so on, maybe do a little bit shorter. Maybe breathe out for 6 and breathe in for 6 and then hold for 12. You do a few breaths there and then you can extend it. I notice that your heartbeat becomes it becomes easier to find. It becomes stronger. It feels like it's beating harder, right? Maybe you experience that. Or maybe your heart is still hiding, It does that sometimes. That's okay. Luckily, your heart is still there, still beating, still keeping you alive. Thank God for that. How wonderful. Your heart beats even when you don't pay attention to it, even when you can't feel it. What a gift that is. Now, as you're breathing, you might begin to feel that it takes some engagement from your abdominal muscles, much more than you normally use when you're breathing, right? Because look at all the times you're controlling the breath. You're controlling the breath at the beginning of your exhalation so that it doesn't all rush out, right? You're trying to have an even, smooth flow, as even as you can. It's very difficult. It might not be completely even, okay, but you're controlling it nonetheless. Then you're squeezing your abdominal muscles as you get into the middle of your exhalation, and especially toward the end of your exhalation, right? Now you have to still control the breath as you turn to the inhalation, because you don't want your breath to just all rush in then either, right? You want it to have a smooth, even flow. And you want to maintain a certain count. If you let it all rush in, it's going to be very difficult for you to get to the top of the inhalation in that count, right? So control, right? Then when you're holding, you still need that control, right? What are you holding with? You're holding with your abdominal muscles. So, okay, wow, right? You are energizing your core, you're energizing your abdominal muscles much more. I mean, many times more, I imagine, right? At least this is how it is for me, right? Much, much more than what is normal for breathing, or even when you're doing the rhythmic breath, right? That's a lot more muscular engagement than you normally do with breathing. The square breath is even more. So it's challenging. It's a workout, right? Notice what it feels like when the breath is in motion, when you're exhaling, when you're inhaling, and then notice what is the difference. How does it feel when you hold, right? Now, let me just remind you, we're only holding the breath at one point in the breath cycle, and that is when your lungs are totally full of breath. That's important. We're not holding the breath after the exhalation, just after the inhalation. So exhale, and you turn the breath around and inhale right after that. When your lungs are full, then you hold, right? Very, very important. Remember, breath is life. Breath is energy. Breath is vitality. Breath is the essence of life. And so what does it mean to take in the maximum amount of breath and then hold it, right? You're holding energy. You're holding that vitality. And what is it doing? It's revitalizing your body, your mind, your emotional body, your spirit. Wow, what a thing. When you release it, and just your heart expands. It's just remarkable. Now let's release the period of holding and just go back to rhythmic breathing now. Notice how your breath feels. Now you're still controlling it. You're still maintaining a count. You're still breathing deeply, slowly, rhythmically, in a heart-centered fashion. You're breathing fully, feeling your heartbeat if you can. You're just not holding anymore. Notice what your exhalation feels like. Does your exhalation feel more spacious? Does it feel like it could even be longer now? If so, you can do that. How does your inhalation feel? How does it feel at the beginning of the inhalation, the middle of the inhalation, the end? Not holding now, just moving into the next breath. Letting your breath flow like a river. Letting it swing back and forth. May the energy of your breath just light you up inside. May you experience the integration of all of the parts of yourself. The parts that you're aware of. You know, we're so aware of our faults and our foibles and our limitations and our mistakes and our regrets and disappointments and all of this, right? We're so aware of that, but are we aware of our timeless and perfect qualities? Are we aware of our strengths? Are we aware of that side of ourselves that has always been and will always be? What a different perspective that puts our foibles in, doesn't it? Becomes a bit like, you know, an oak tree, right? If an oak tree falls into a crack in a mountain where there's not much soil, that's not going to be a big tree. That's going to be a small tree, right? Would we look at that tree and say, what a failure? No, of course not. We'd look at this tree and we'd say, look at what you've managed to do. You've managed to survive in this very difficult environment. Yeah, that's shaped you. Of course it has. Well, you're alive. You're perfect. Let me just appreciate you as you are. Maybe you could extend that same vibe to yourself. You could say, yes, I have these limitations. I've made these mistakes. I have these regrets. I have these disappointments. But look at who I really am, right? We're going to be marked by life. We're limited in this life, in this body. But we're also unlimited. We're also eternal. We're also perfect. That's true. It's just as true. Neither one is more or less true than the other, right? Let's embrace it all. All right, well, when you're ready, then you can end your meditation and come out of it and just move a little bit and reflect on what you experienced.
Thank you so much, Asatar. I feel much more grounded from that practice. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. If you'd like to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. Like I said, you're missing out hugely if you're not following Lee on Instagram. And of course, you can find me on Twitter. I'm active there. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We're here every week.
Thank you for practicing. Thank you for meditating.
Keep on practicing. Every moment you practice is a moment that brings you that much more into yourself.
Yes. Okay. Until next week.
Till next week. Namaste. Take care, everyone.